from Bluffton, South Carolina.
Suzanne, it's
Hey, thank you, Lynette and Bev, for the pre-game show. I was feeling a little blah earlier, but boy, the energy just picks up as I feel all of you coming into the Zoom room. And even though we can't see you, unfortunately, because it's a webinar and not a meeting, we can feel you, and I hope you can feel our love coming back to you. Good evening, everybody. I just love these Tuesday evenings with all of you, and I love your enthusiasm as the energy, the way it builds, and I know I'll give you reason to be enthusiastic. The spirit world certainly gives me that reason, and I get to share their teaching, the evidence from the individuals in the spirit world with all of you this evening, especially as we go into the holiday season. So Naya gave me the most beautiful poem a few days ago about how we all say the holidays are supposed to be jolly and we're supposed to feel great, but many don't. And because many of you in this beautiful community of ours came here because of somebody transitioning, somebody you love dearly. And the holidays just bring to our awareness that they're not here physically. But my goal this evening is to show you they are still so much a part of your life. The evidence is just astounding and irrefutable that this is so. And it's just the greatest message I could bring to you ever, but especially at the holidays. I had some good news yesterday when I received a copy in the mail of the French translation of my book, Messages of Hope. It had already been translated into Spanish, and now the French world can read that book and receive the hope that I hope comes from it. And it's just a beautiful story of how that came to be. A woman named Nadine Wooding, who lives in France and is a native French speaker, her son passed, Philippe, from cancer. And she was in deep grief, and she read Messages of Hope. Her husband was English speaking, and so she's fluent in both languages. And she reached out to me and said she wanted to take on the project of translating that book for no fee. And she said it would help her through her grief. And we agreed to do it only if we would both agree that all royalties from the book would go to cancer research. That was my idea, that if she wasn't going to take money, then neither was I, and it needed to go to a good cause. The interesting thing is that during the process of writing or translating the book, her husband, they discovered he had cancer, and he passed just in this last year. So I just have to hope that translation and our coming together was part of Soul's way of saying that, hey, now you really know we're still here. And I was able to bring her son through to her, and haven't done a reading since her husband passed, but we'll have to do that. So if you know anybody that needs that book in French, let them know it's out there. And I believe through Amazon.fr for French or France. So let's see. It's been a rough week for readings. Just that my clients have been in a lot of grief, and that's why we do this work. The tremendous thing for me was seeing the transformation through the process of the reading when the clients can't deny that their loved ones are here, and that is the goal of mediumship. So I'm glad you're with me this evening. Even though we know what we know, some of you are coming to know there's a greater reality. Others, we just know it in our hearts. Do we ever get tired of hearing how clever, how creative, how close our loved ones in spirit are? I know I never do, even after all these years of working as a medium. So before we get going too far, again, just thank you to Lynette for bringing everybody in. Thank you to Bev for handling a bunch of registration snafus today. She's just worked all day long getting all of you in here. So they're both just jewels and irreplaceable in this team. Let's all come together as one beautiful field. We already are, but let's do it in awareness together so that you all feel the same energy that I know I'm feeling right now. Let's just close our eyes for a minute, shut out the outer world. Let's take a really relaxing breath. Feel how you feel now and set the intention that in one breath you'll just slip into this beautiful relaxed state. And now settling into this experience, we all affirm that we're ready to be present this evening. aware of the presence of Spirit bringing us all together. Let's shift our awareness from the limited human focus to the celebration that we all are souls here and now. And may we hear with the ears of the soul. May we hear exactly what we need to hear this evening. May we be healed in some way by what is shared this evening, and feel that lift that comes from sitting in this energy of love as one collective group of love. And so it is. With gratitude, we'll begin the evening. Nice. So I mentioned it in the emails that went out about this evening. Lots of evidence, maybe a little heavy this evening on the evidence, but not too heavy. And again, especially just to celebrate who we are and where our loved ones are right here. So I did a reading. All of these happened in the last month since we were last together. And a woman wrote back to say, hey, in that reading, my son showed us that he would be sending us hawks. Until now, he hasn't sent us hawks. Imagine her surprise when the next day, without sharing that, her, is it her son? Hang on, let me get it right. Her husband sent a photo clip with pictures of their son when he was younger, and on the front page was him holding up his new Tony Hawk shirt with a huge hawk in the middle. I never even heard of Tony Hawk, but it was obviously significant to her. And since then, they have been finding hawk feathers in their path, so much so that she sent me a photo of all these big feathers lined up. So I was just reading some comments on my Facebook page from people who are discouraged because they say they don't get signs. And I'm asking the team why that is so, why some people don't get them. And Spirit says many times you just don't notice them. You're looking for specific signs. But when it comes in the form of a picture or a t-shirt, that counts. Or somebody just mentioning it. We don't have to be very, very strict about this, but at the same time, don't accept everything as a sign. It comes with a knowing in the heart. This is my loved one drawing my attention to this. So a beautiful, beautiful reading occurred with a woman who had had several readings before, but just wasn't convinced that her loved one was present. I didn't know who she had across the veil. When I turned on my Zoom meeting room and saw this woman there, I just immediately knew that she had a child across the veil. And indeed, that child showed up. It was a daughter, and her personality came through so clearly. I want to look at my notes so I don't miss some of these things. But you know, some personalities may seem generic. Any of you who are mediumship students, please try to go really deep and to find situations where, even though we get a certain personality type, there are little oddities and differences in everybody's personality that is unique to them. So look for those. Ask those in Spirit to show you, how did they not quite fit the norm? In this case, she really made herself felt to me, this young woman across the veil. She was incredibly bright intellectually. She showed me I learned almost by osmosis. I loved the way she put that into words like that. She showed me I was clean, meaning no drugs. I knew she meant no drugs, and her mother said, absolutely. At this point in the reading, I didn't know how she had passed. So that was significant because unfortunately, these days, a lot of young people do pass as a result of drugs. She showed me that academics and schoolwork to her was almost too easy. She was a real go-getter, very positive attitude about everything. And all this creativity was just bubbling up from her. I could tell that she was into art and music and drama, and she indeed did do all of those things. She showed me she was a real hugger and very clingy to her parents when she was young. A lot of empathy and compassion for others, a cheerleader for others. But then that little difference, in spite of all of this, she suddenly showed me my symbol for anxiety, and I could feel that that anxiety went inward, that she was very unsure of herself at times and very, very uncomfortable with change. It totally shocked me when she showed me the symbol for taking her own life through asphyxiation. It just didn't match up, but this is what happens in readings. We can't make assumptions about personality versus how somebody passed. And yet, in spite of how she passed, she came through obviously with so much love for her parents, with gratitude for her parents, and wanted to let them know that she was just fine. Some of the evidence she gave, I look for evidence that doesn't fit everybody, that's very specific to those people in spirit. And she shouted at me that her dad was in the military. I loved that. She showed me Mom. I knew this was a current event. Mom planting flowers. And she went like this. And Mom lit up. She said, just yesterday, I planted several tulips in a row. So, of course, that shows us that her daughter was watching. She's not stuck in some place because of the way she passed. She's very much aware of Mom and what Mom's doing. I opened my eyes during the reading and I was snagged by a big amethyst I have across the room right here. And I asked her daughter, why did you just draw that to my attention? And she said, my mom likes crystals. Tell her about the amethyst. Ask her about that. And her mom had just ordered one. She did have a collection of crystals. Just ordered an amethyst. She made my teeth hurt all around. When elderly people do that in a reading, I know it's false teeth, but I tuned in. I said, your daughter's telling me she had that Invisalign tooth thing to straighten out her teeth. And in fact, she absolutely did. Wore clear retainers at night. Then she gave me a name, and I thought this was really funny. Her mother said, well, that was her name for one day. Her first name, I'll actually tell you, she gave me the name Jennifer. And she said that they named her that for the first day of her life and then decided it didn't fit her. They didn't like that name. So they changed her name after one day. I got a name that was similar to hers after that, but I didn't get the name that everybody knew her as. So it's so funny, you know, Spirit knows what we want, and I know they're trying, but she got through the best she could. Now, I'm going to have to show you a slide of this one because I always ask those in spirit, and anything I ask them, if you're a medium too or a student of mediumship, be sure to know you can ask anything of spirit if it's going to help to show they are here. And one of the things I always love when they show is a photograph that the loved ones here would recognize, one they treasure. So I have the photo to show you. Didn't know it was a photo at the time, but I said, look, your daughter is obviously a teenager, but she's showing me her as a little girl in like a princess outfit, complete with what looks like a tutu, but it's really just the frilly skirt. And I looked closer, which is something you all can do. Don't just go with the first thing that flashes in your mind. Looked a little closer. I said, she even has a tiara and a wand. Imagine how it felt to me, but more than that, to Mom, as I bring up the screen here, to share with me this photo. Wow, everybody. Look at that little princess outfit, the frilly skirt, the tiara, and the wand. Isn't that beautiful? Oh my goodness. So Spirit will cooperate with us when we ask. Alrighty. Let's see. I saw someone had a tattoo, and I know from doing so many readings that after somebody passes, there's usually somebody that got a tattoo. So let's ask for specifics. And I said, this one has a heart on it. I can't remember if I knew it wasn't the family member. I seem to recall that. And indeed, her friend who she knew when she was 3 to 8 years old recently got a tattoo in her honor, and the design had 2 little hearts on it. So again, very much aware of what's going on in everybody's life. She showed me a birthday cake and the month of May. And indeed, her birthday was in May. I very clearly knew what she was saying when she went photo, photo, photo. I said, Mom, I can't see the room you're in, but your daughter does. And she sees you have 3 of her photos right in front of her, right in front of you. And Mom did. Isn't that cool? We don't have to see, they can see. So know that your loved ones see all around you right now. Let's see. The daughter showed somebody, a kid, playing a squeaky violin. I said, this really feels like her. And Mom started laughing. She said, I was just thinking of her when she was little playing a squeaky violin because last night I watched a cute video of a little boy playing a violin. So many current events here. I loved when she showed me a doll house, but it was one of those where the whole front of the house is cut out and it was multiple story doll houses. I never had one of those, but it was so obvious to me when she showed it that this girl in spirit had one, and indeed, Mom verified that she did. So I believe that's enough evidence right there. It's not everything that came through. I'm not sharing the messages that the daughter had. This is the most important part of her reading. Why did she take her life? What was going on? What does she want her family to know now? All of that was conveyed, and all of that evidence backs up that the family can trust this is coming straight from their daughter, and it was very touching. And the reason that we as mediums want to emphasize the evidence is because that woman, my client, had had 2 years of despair and doubt. She'd had several readings and none of them convinced her. What I didn't know is that she was raised as an army brat with no religious upbringing. I found this out later. She was a physics major at the College of William and Mary, so very left brain, by the book. She, the client, went on to become an Army officer. So she was very left brain and really looking for the evidence, and that is what totally changed her in the course of that one session. What really thrilled me is I didn't realize that she was going to come to my class in Pittsburgh the following week. And she was talking with my neighbor Irene Vuvalides, who's the vice president of Helping Parents Heal. She was in a little chat group, and she said, I had to go shopping for a new outfit for the class in Pittsburgh. I've been so depressed. I haven't shopped in 2 years. And when she showed up at the class in a brand new outfit, to me, she was radiant. And it all comes from finally knowing what the soul already knows, that our loved ones are right here. So what a gift, what a gift. And it takes evidence to get through some people's left brains. I know from experience. This one, I'm going to be sharing this in my class tomorrow with the Shift Network, my Sacred Evidential Mediumship class. If you're in that class, I'm sorry you're going to have to hear it twice, but I have to share it. And the client has allowed me to share it with all of you. This is a man who told me when we started the reading that just last week, his grief counselor recommended me by name. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I talked to a neighbor at a party just recently, and she's seeing a grief counselor, and the grief counselor said, I hear they talk to dead people where you live. That would be our neighborhood. Yes, we do talk to dead people here, and that counselor was not into this. It was not part of her counseling, and I can tell you that this man who I'm about to discuss, he just leaped forward so far in his grief journey, in his healing as a result of this connection. So his counselor really gets a lot of credit for being open to this. So I always teach, don't make assumptions who somebody has across the veil. It could be anybody that we're deeply grieving. I remember one man I did a reading for, and it was his mother. He was a man in his 50s, and his grief over his mother was inconsolable until we brought her through. So looking at this man, I couldn't tell who he had across the veil until we started. And as soon as we started, shame on me to not feel right away exactly what was going on, but I knew he had a partner across the veil. And I tuned in, and it was very clearly a spouse. And I said to him, well, this could go either way, but it feels like a wife. And he looked and he laughed. He says, no, it's my husband. And I just had to laugh, even though he was smiling too. Even though he was in grief, he had a really good sense of humor. And I said, well, let me tell you why it feels like a wife. And you have to understand, I've told everybody before, I don't see them. So it has to go on clairsentience, the feeling and the claircognizance, knowing for me. I said, your husband is standing here. I see gestures with his hands on his hips, and he's shaking his shoulders, and he's saying, well, honey, I'm right here, and things always had to be in order like this, and I really ran the household. Can you see why that felt like a wife? I'm putting myself on report here as the wife. But after that, everything just flowed so beautifully. And I love some of the evidence that this man across the veil got through. He, of course, showed us how he passed, and it was accurate. But he flashed something in my mind, and I never would have thought it from this client, but I said, he's showing me this little thing that my husband and I used to have in our RV. This little solar-powered plastic tchotchke that you sit there, and it was a hula dancer, and it danced in the sun like this. And we used to joke about it, and we loved it. I know you have one of these. I don't think it's a hula dancer, but I know it's a little plastic thing, and you will recognize it. And he said, it's sitting right next to his ashes. Whoa, there's my first goosebumps of the evening. I hope that gave you guys goosebumps. And then throughout the rest of the reading, I didn't realize it, but afterwards he sent an email to Lynette that 3 or 4 things that were on that shelf with the ashes came through. Roses, flickering candles, mention of Archangel Michael, and his photo, all of those things. But here's what's really funny. Beforehand, my client said to his husband, give me a sign from across the veil. Let's make it a blue cornflower. That was on the shelf, and it's the one thing he did not get through to me. So I don't know if he's trying to show all of us that we shouldn't play that very specific code word password thing. I don't know if it's because I wouldn't know a cornflower if somebody put it in front of me, that I never heard of a cornflower. Most likely the latter, since he was very clearly trying to get through all those other things. But my very favorite part in the whole reading was, I said, your partner must have been very fastidious about cleaning up, because he's showing me little hairs that have come out of a razor from shaving. So these are facial hairs, those little short straight ones, and he's scooping them up, putting them in a hand like, we got to clean these up. And my client just said, I know what that is. He didn't tell me what it was at the time, but oh, did we celebrate at the end of the reading when he held up a necklace that he's wearing, and he says, I didn't want to have his ashes in this necklace, but I wanted a part of him near my heart always. So I took the hairs out of his razor and put them in my necklace. Oh, there are those goosebumps again. My gosh, to see something that specific, to be able to deliver that message, I know you carry me right there in your necklace. I didn't get the necklace, but I never would have even imagined that. And that's one of those things that's a little frustrating. If we can't imagine that somebody would have hairs in a necklace, it's a little harder for them to get through. But I can see how he could have put it together by showing me a necklace. It didn't matter. It was much more magical for us to celebrate that at the end of the reading. And the beautiful part was, I mentioned, for me, the most important thing is to accurately represent their messages. This husband across the veil came through me in channeling. I feel this way about you. You did this for me. We did this together. This is how I feel about you. And that man across the screen, he was so caught up in it. As I'm speaking on behalf of his husband, he is just saying, yes, my love. Yes, my love. The love between them was so palpable. It was so beautiful. I stayed 20 minutes longer than normal just because I didn't want to leave that beautiful, magical field of reconnection that we were enjoying together. That's the whole point of mediumship. It was amazing. And then as we were wrapping up, I said, he's showing me little note cards. And his husband, my client, reaches down and pulls up a sticky note and a note card with little notes written to him on it. He said, they're all over the house. He would leave me sticky notes with love notes all over the house. So I went down and I talked to Ty and I said, you know, love really is love. It was just amazing, amazing. So I love to share that with all of you. What is it we say all the time? Love never dies. And that was evidence of it. So, symbols. Let's talk about them for a second. They're very helpful in a reading for me since I see like charades. They're very efficient. They almost become like a shortcut in a reading. And we just feel into why they're showing us that. So if somebody was a golfer, clearly I'll see a full golf swing. So it was really funny this last month when the spirit shows me putting for golf. I I ask all of you who are mediums to get in the habit of reporting objectively what you see. Don't interpret it first. So I said to my client, this is really strange. Your husband is, no, it was her dad. It was her dad. Your dad is just putting. Normally, golfers swing the full golf club, but he's not golfing. He's just putting. And she laughed and she said, up until he died, one of our favorite activities together was putt-putt. He was not a golfer. He just liked putt-putt. So I just heard Brenda, my guide right now, taking credit for that one because she knows all my symbols. She briefs the spirits ahead of time, and she must have said, don't go like this or she'll think you were a golfer, but she'll understand putting. I love how our guides help us out in that way. Alrighty. So another one more reading, and then I'll take a couple of Q&As here. But I started one reading for a couple. Mom and dad are both on screen. And I knew in advance they had a son in spirit. So I didn't know anything else about him. But right before I started, suddenly in my mind flashed the image of somebody in a sailor suit. It was funny. It wasn't like a regular Navy uniform. I would recognize that. It was like a kid's sailor suit. And then just as we began, and I felt their son step in and merge with my energy field, I saw that sailor suit again. I said that to the parents, and neither one commented. So I felt pretty sure it didn't have any meaning for them. At this point, I didn't even know how old their son was, what the story was. But as I tuned in, I could tell he was a young adult. And I said, this is so unusual. He's going down on one knee in front of dad. I see spirits go down on one knee when they're making a marriage proposal. So obviously he's not doing this with his dad. So you tune in and you say, what are you doing? And I said, he's wearing a white shirt and a tie. Dad, do you understand this? I open my eyes and dad is wiping away tears. He said, yeah, I was the coach of his hockey team. And they would all go down on one knee right before we would go out. They'd go out on the ice, and I would give them the final encouraging words and the final instructions. And when we would go to away games, they all wore ties. And just before this reading, I was in his bedroom fingering his ties. Wow. Woo, more goosebumps. So it's okay if spirit builds on something they've already given you, but there's a human tendency to say, am I making this up because dad mentioned hockey? But the very next thing that the son showed us was him on the ice playing hockey. So I said, you've got to give me something specific so that I'm not just, nobody guesses that this is my imagination. And I said, he's showing me a very special moment in one really important game, and he just slapped that puck into the goal, the net. He scored the final goal in a really important game, and he's spinning around on the ice. The crowd is going wild, and I know you have a video of this and you watch it over and over. Now see, that's when I knew this is not me making this up. Mom and dad sent me the video. There's their son. In the final game of the state champions, he hit the final scoring goal, spinning around on the ice, and they went on to the nationals. How much more accurate could their son get? What a beautiful way to show them he's still very much part of their life. He showed me his mom wore a special necklace. Well, I'll tell you that nearly 100% of moms, shining light moms with kids across the veil, wear a special necklace. So I'm not satisfied with that anymore. They have to show me what the necklace is. And the funny thing about this, the wonderful thing is right after that, the son in spirit put a hand in the pocket, in the right pocket. And I could feel the fingers fingering something. I said, Dad, Mom wears a necklace, but I've never seen this. You carry a small, hard, round object that relates to your son, and he says you finger it all the time. I open my eyes and Dad's holding out this little coin, not a normal coin, that he holds in his son's honor and fingers all the time in his right pocket. Can you see how very near everybody is across the veil? He showed me face paint. I said, he's going like this. I don't feel this is a hockey thing up under the eyes. He's going like this, and it's colorful. They couldn't remember him wearing face paint, but he clearly had seen this photo that I'm about to show you. There we go. They had forgotten they had this photo, and it's clearly what he was trying to show. Now, that's one of those not telepathy moments when you know you're not reading the client's mind, when those in spirit show you something that mom and dad don't know. But this next one takes the cake. I said, your son is showing me a key. Normally I have a symbol when they dangle a key and move it over. That means their car or their keys were given to someone else. But this is different. He's showing me a key, and it looks very much like a house key. It's that shape. But what's really special about it is it has engraved numbers on it, and these numbers are really important. They're significant. And mom and dad looked at me and they said, we don't know anything about that. Well, imagine the celebration a few days later when dad felt the nudge to open a box in his son's bedroom that he hasn't opened since his son passed. He opened it, and I'm going to show you a picture of what was inside. This auto part thing that he'd ordered with this key that looks just like a house key and numbers on it. If you can read the screen, the numbers are 220. Guess what? Their son's birthday is 220. They've never seen this. He knew it was in the box in his bedroom and nudged dad to get it out. Is that awesome or what? Boy, this stuff keeps me going. I don't know about you. I hope it'll fuel you for the holidays. Wow, wow, wow. And then right at the end, he showed me he was this close to going to college, didn't quite get there, but then his parents said, yeah, he had just received an invitation to attend a summer program at the U.S. Naval Academy. And suddenly I got it, the sailor suit, the sailor suit. Plebes, freshmen at the Naval Academy wear these sailor suits that are unlike any other Navy uniform. The only people in the whole Navy that wear this little sailor suit are plebes at the Naval Academy. Now, this was just a summer program. I don't know if he would have become a plebe, but I know that's what he was showing us, that he knew that that acceptance letter had come to his parents after he passed. So it was just all around wonderful. Mom sent me an email a couple days after the reading to ask if a sign she saw in the clouds was her imagination. And as I'm looking at the photo, their son dropped in on me and he said, Mighty Ducks, Mighty Ducks. I didn't know that movie, but sent that to mom, and it turns out it's a hockey movie that they used to watch together. So pretty cool. I said I would do some Q&A. I have more evidence to share with you. Hopefully there's some teaching in this evidence that will help some of you working as mediums to tune in and get more clarity even as I share evidence. Okay, take a breath here. Bev, let's take a few questions.
Okay. Donna has inherited an antique toy that has been passed down through 3 generations, and she asks, do objects like this carry the energy from people who owned them?
Oh, absolutely, objects carry energy. In fact, it's probably why I can't stand going in antique shops. The energy just pushes me out the door. It's the practice of holding an object and discerning things about people who have had that object before is called psychometry. So I recommend anybody that's interested in that look it up. The very first, no, it wasn't the very first. One of the very first mediumistic experiences I had was in a class with medium Ann Gaiman before I knew I would be a medium, and she had us hold a piece of jewelry of a partner in the class, and I held a woman's watch and I said, I'm hearing the word son and new car, and she says, I have a son in spirit and I just got a new car. And it was one of those, how did that happen? I guess that was just the beginning. So you all might want to try that, but just remember, anytime you do something like that, shift out of human mode, shift from limited human perspective to, I'm going to set the intention that this discernment comes from the soul. The soul has a much higher perspective. Just your intention gets you there. So make that shift. If I were to just pick up something, there's a piece of selenite right here, and try to feel something from it from my human state, it would be much different than if I just do that shift. All right. And by the way, if it's been handed down 3 generations, clearly it's going to have a bunch of information in there.
Excellent. Thank you. Christine asks, how do you, and I'd say in Sanaya, feel about ghost investigations at haunted locations?
I am fascinated by them. I am not at all frightened by them. I wish we would have different vocabulary for them and take it seriously, because what's really going on is we're tuning into the energy of what used to be there. In some cases, there are still spirits who like to hang around there, who most likely are not stuck but have a message to deliver. And there are some fascinating things that go on there. So to me, it's fascinating. I've seen some videos of really cool stuff like doors opening and closing by themselves, but it's a very real phenomenon, but maybe not quite as common as we think. I just don't care for, I don't resonate with the way TV shows sensationalize it, and we have to give it all the scary music and make it seem freaky. But that's just me. How about one more?
Thank you. Eileen asks, after our loved ones cross the veil, are they immediately available to us, or is there some time that needs to pass before we can get in touch with them?
Okay, let me get the right answer here, or the most appropriate answer. That is they are almost universally immediately aware of you, because we're seeing with the eyes of the soul. But that's going to depend on their level of understanding the spirit world before they pass. I'm thinking particularly of my mother, who, even though she's my mom, and I was a medium for at least 10 years before she passed, a practicing medium, when she passed, she didn't realize she had passed. I visited her across the veil instead of meeting in the middle. It was the most amazing experience. And she seemed to be in a dreamlike state and just had not realized she had passed yet. Later I visited and she was finally catching on. I think my mom's an unusual circumstance, situation. But whether or not people can communicate right away across the veil is also going to depend on the evolutionary level of their soul. If somebody's a very advanced soul or cleared out all of their human gunk, the conditioning before they pass, they would likely be able to communicate much more rapidly. Also, those who were ill for a while, or perhaps had a state of dementia for a while, their soul's already practicing communicating. And so they may be able to communicate more clearly or quickly than those on a sudden passing. But again, those are just stereotypes. Every person's going to be unique. So don't just be aware of your own expectations and be open to anything. All right. Thanks, Bev. We'll take more later. Some of you may remember Caleb, the young man who sent orbs in the family's security camera. We played this several mentoring sessions ago, and it was phenomenal. Maybe, Bev, when we put the video out, you can put a date for that mentoring session so people might want to get that one, because it was amazing how this orb is bouncing into his dad's heart, going around his head. Mom comes on screen, and the orb is just clearly interacting with his parents. It's Caleb messing around. So I got a letter, an email from his mom a couple weeks ago, that in the reading I did for them, his son brought up burnt popcorn, and that made no sense to anybody. So I love follow-ups. She said that his best friend went with her to Caleb's room recently and pulled out a big tote bag full of memories. And his best friend pulled out the high school yearbook, opened it up, and saw a picture of Caleb's girlfriend. And I have to read what it said. his girlfriend wrote in the high school yearbook, "I cannot stand when people have bad manners and act like they're better than others or burnt popcorn." She said, his friend and I looked at each other, got chills, and it got really cool in the room. He threw the book and wanted to run out. LOL. I told him it's nothing to be scared about. It's just Caleb. I know Caleb was laughing at him. This is the first time I truly felt he was with me. I love that. I love that they didn't know what it meant, and it unfolded so beautifully and meaningfully like that. Here's an example of the web that we're all part of. We are so interconnected, all of us, and you see it more and more when you come to notice the web. It builds on itself. I mentioned Irene, Helping Parents Heal VP. She and another woman came to my house for lunch last month. I rarely do a little girls' lunch, but we were sitting there having a get together, and she got to chatting about a woman that was in her Shining Light Parents chat recently, and she was saying how tragic it was that she had a baby who passed by drowning, only 1 year old. As she told me that story, and she told me a geographic location where this woman was, I thought to myself, ooh, I wouldn't want to be the medium for that reading, because it's for an evidence-based medium. For me, it's a little challenging to get a whole lot of evidence from somebody who is 1 year old, because the kind of evidence we look for is what kind of work they did, what kind of schooling they had, hobbies, interests, activities, memories. So I like to really validate for the parents, your child is right here, and there's not a whole lot in 1 year of life. I hope you understand that. We can certainly get their messages, but I love the evidence. So I just had that thought. 2 hours later, the lunch was over, I went to do a reading. I played the sign game with Brenda beforehand. Brenda's my guide, and if you've been in these webinars before, you know that every time before I do a reading, I say, hey Brenda, what's Lynette doing? What's a current event with Lynette? And she tells me it. I pick up my phone, I text Lynette, who knows I'm about to do a reading, and says, Brenda says you're doing this. And Lynette will validate it or not. Most of the time validates it. In this case, Brenda told me 2 things. Lynette texted back, yep, did those 2 things recently. Go have a good reading. And I said, wait, she just flashed in one more thing, a teddy bear. Well, Lynette came back and said, oh my gosh, last night I was talking to Brenda's son and daughter-in-law. They're not really married, but she's like a daughter-in-law. And they have a new dog, a puppy. Wait till you see this puppy. I'll show you guys a slide later. It looks just like a teddy bear. I even said to them, the dog looks like a teddy bear. So I said, great, send the photo, but I got to go. It's time for the reading. So I turn the phone upside down so it doesn't bother me, and I start the reading. My client came on the screen, knew nothing about her, had no idea who she lost, but I took one look at her, and I just knew she had a baby across the veil. It's that claircognizance, because you're already tuning in. And I looked at her and I said, you have a very young child who passed. I can sense him here. This is a boy, but he feels about 3 years old or younger. She said, yeah, a boy, 3 years old. And all of a sudden, the pieces started to come together. It took me a little while to sense how he passed, but I noticed a symbol I have, but I just couldn't believe it. This young boy passed from drowning. We had just had this conversation. And I'm trying to say this couldn't be the same person. And it wasn't, because my client was in a different country and the age of the children was different. But I will say I struggled a bit to come up with evidence from him. Most important to me is to capture his essence, and he had a very discernible, lovely personality that I was able to bring through. But at one point I said, he's handing you a teddy bear. He's showing me a teddy bear that was important to him. She didn't comment at all. This mom, oh, my heart goes out to her and all moms out there, of course, but she was very, very hurting, a hurting unit. And at the end, she said, I'm so glad you didn't make assumptions. This is really important for all of you who are mediums and students of mediumship. I'm so glad you didn't make assumptions. Every other medium who's read for me, as soon as they find out he was 3, start talking about his blankets and his bottles, and he didn't have any of those. So right away, my human side kind of prickles, and I thought, uh-oh, and I brought up the teddy bear, but I know what he showed me. And I said to her, well, he showed me a teddy bear, and guys, she reached down by her side and lifted up this teddy bear. That's why he brought up the teddy bear. She's sitting there holding it, and I couldn't tell. But this is why I wanted to show you the picture that Lynette sent me by text, and why Brenda brought up the teddy bear. Notice, remember, all these pieces, the web, the web. I'm going to go back to share the screen. I said to this woman, I'm going to take a screenshot of you. I'm not going to get you in the picture, but I have to take a picture of your teddy bear. Ready? This is Brenda's grand dog. This is the teddy bear dog. This is a real dog, everybody. It's wearing a little sweater, but look at that face. Look at those ears. This cannot possibly be a real dog, but it is. And look at the teddy bear that this young woman held up in her reading. I'll put them side by side. To me, that's so similar. The little nose and those ears. It's not your standard teddy bear. Can you see the web at work here? I hope you're celebrating with me. That was one of those readings that's so hard as a medium, because there was nothing I could say to make her feel better. And it was very clear she wanted to join her son. And several emails went by afterwards about why that would not be a good idea. And you can only pray, and as we send healing energy to her, even though you don't know her, you don't know who she is, all of us can send that to her right now. Just to find strength and courage. Yeah, but it's amazing to me. So let's see, let's lift the energy a bit here. Just remember what that showed, that love never dies. When those in spirit show you an image, I think I showed you this a couple of examples already this evening, but I want to do it again, like the hockey game. Look farther, open it up. I did a reading earlier this month, and the young man in spirit showed me he had a sports trophy. Could tell, it was that big tall one. I said, this is in his bedroom, but don't be satisfied with that. Before I even reported it, because I didn't want Mom to instantly think about it. Why? Because I might pick it up from her. He showed me the trophy, and I said to him, what's on top? And I said to Mom, your son showed me a trophy, and there's a guy swinging a baseball bat on top. And she just matter-of-factly said, oh yeah, he had a bunch of baseball trophies. I want to go, yay, this is exciting. And Mom's just like, yeah, he had a bunch of those. So look farther. That's my advice for you there. I'll take a couple questions, then I'll share what I said I would share in the email, my new addition to the list of top experiences ever with the spirit world.
Hey, here's a question from Mindy. She says, my friend has an extremely difficult relationship with his mother. She tells him that when she passes, she will always be with him. He is terrified that she will ceaselessly haunt him. What can I tell him to ease his fears?
Please tell him that Mom may be looking in on him, but he does not have to accept her energy into his energy field. Actually, they'll always be connected as souls. The love is always there, but while he's working on himself and their relationship, he has this law of personal responsibility and free will on his side, so that he can say, Mom, you have to leave me alone now. And it works. Once they cross the veil, I know they'll see each other. Hopefully he'll see that she's grown, that she's changed, and they will want to hang out, but they don't have to. Okay.
Thank you. Sarah says, while doing a reading recently, I had a living spirit come through with a message for her mom. Is this a common thing?
It's not common, but it does happen. And I encourage everybody, when somebody says, well, that person's still alive, get evidence from them that you really are tuning into them. And sometimes there's just a message that they want to deliver that's not coming through on the human to human level. And so hopefully it's helpful and healing. If it's harmful or scary, you might want to find an easier way to say that, or not share it at all right away, just in case it's not coming through clearly. Do no harm, rule number 1. Okay, how about one more, Bev?
One more. Mary Annette asks, if those we love are aware of our loving thoughts, are those with whom we had painful relationships aware of our negative thoughts?
Sorry to tell you this, everybody, but absolutely can't hide the thoughts from the soul. And that's the beautiful thing about being across the veil. There's no lying, there's total honesty, and if we could only have that here, we would learn so much better. But I guess we sometimes learn in the painful ways as well. But they're very much aware of them, so let's upgrade them. That's what we're here to learn, to love, love, love unconditionally. Thank you, everybody. All right, so I mentioned in the email that this ranks right up there with the book that moved. In Wolf's message, I was standing in a bookstore, and very clearly there was a book I was supposed to read. It ended up having in it a major clue to something that came up in Wolf's reading, solved a mystery. But that book, I saw it move on the shelf. That's called physical mediumship, when something moves. Was it an illusion? It could have been. But what was happening was spirit was manipulating the information coming into my aura to make it look like it moved. Regardless, my perception was the book moved. Wolf is a young man named Michael Pasakarnis. It was his nickname, Wolf. He came back through a reading with the most amazing, important message for all of humanity. I saw somebody ask the question, who's Wolf? If you haven't read the book, you will want to, because it's stunning and shows proof that we are souls, and the soul often knows what's going to happen to it. So I mentioned that I went to Pittsburgh to teach my personal mediumship class a couple weeks ago. I arrived Friday night before the Saturday class, and it was well after closing time for the shops and cafes in the hotel lobby when I arrived, but I put my luggage in the room and decided to check out the hotel for the next morning. I wanted to find the fitness center so I could find it in the morning. I wanted to see what my breakfast options were. So I wandered down to the lobby, and I saw a Starbucks counter behind a closed gate. And so I'm standing there looking through the gate to see anything there I might want rather than the full buffet in the dining room. And just then a woman named Kim, who is going to be on my radio show this Thursday to share this story live with everyone. Kim wanders by. I didn't know Kim, but I could tell by the way she was looking at me that she knew me. And she goes, Suzanne. And I said, you must be in my class tomorrow. And she said, yes. We got to talking. She's all excited. It was helping my energy build for the class. And I said, well, okay, see you tomorrow. Glad you're here. She wandered off. Turns out that she had forgot contact solution or something. And because she forgot it, she was wandering around to see if she could find it, but the gift shop was closed. So just notice how we were brought together because she just happened to forget something. I just happened to want to go downstairs, and there we are crossing paths. So she walked away, and I went back to looking through the closed gate of the Starbucks. Just as I look in there, there's a basket of oatmeal, instant oatmeal packets on the counter. And one of the packets slipped down in the basket on its own and went back up. And it made this squiggly noise like this. Just like that. And it was just like the book that moved. I kind of looked to the side like, did anybody see that but me? There's nobody around. And I looked back, I looked at that oatmeal basket, and I said, who's here? And I said, Brenda, was that you? I don't feel Brenda. Boris, my main spirit guide, was that you? I don't feel either one of them. And then I feel this spirit with this giggly feeling, just kind of going like, hee 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 hee, like this is fun. But I couldn't tell you, male, female, old, young. It was the strangest thing to be a medium, to have physical mediumship. This oatmeal package moves. I know it's a message, and I can't tell who it is. Just this little feeling of anticipation. But in that moment, I knew it was somebody related to Kim, who I had just talked with. So class starts the next day. I was really wrapped up in teaching the group. I saw her at one point, but didn't have a chance to talk to her. And after the lunch break, there were a few people waiting in line to have their books signed, my books. Kim got up to me. I'm signing her book, and I'm thinking now about this oatmeal package. And she mentioned something about a daughter while I'm signing my book, and I looked at her and I said, "You have a daughter in spirit? Because I'm not feeling anything." And she said, "No, my mom. I'm here because I want to connect with my mom." Now, I'm still not feeling mom. And I don't like to ask questions, but you know what my next question is. Did your mother like oatmeal? And Kim went, now, this is not your normal reaction to oatmeal, right? So I get covered with goosebumps, and everybody in line can feel now the electric energy between the two of us, and people start looking at us because I start telling her, I know this is your mom. I know she gave me a sign last night. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to tell me, why did you react like that to oatmeal? Because I wouldn't. That's not your normal oatmeal reaction. And she said, my mother ate oatmeal every night. Not every morning. I know you all thought I was going to say morning. Every night. Now that is unusual. And she said, for the past week, for some reason, I've been obsessed with oatmeal and I've eaten it every day for a week. Why are you asking? And I told her what happened with the oatmeal, and now everybody's looking at us, and we were just celebrating and clapping. And she said, Suzanne, I had a few really good signs from my mom on the way here, but I said to her just as I was arriving, Mom, I need a really big sign that you're around. And I said, well, your mom did it. And the class reconvened, and I shared this with the class. And her daughter raises her hand, Kim raises her hand, and she said, Suzanne, something you need to know about my mom. She always had to be the center of attention. She loved attention. And suddenly I hear Brenda going, ding, ding, ding. And I knew why I couldn't sense Mom. I said, your mom loved the way this unfolded. She loved the dramatic way that it unfolded. She loves that I'm sharing it with the class in the moment, and the entire class is now celebrating your mom and the oatmeal that moved in front of you. It's just beautiful how spirit works. Just beautiful, and I hope that you love it too. Oh gosh, so I put it right away on my list of top events. I hope all of you document your awesome spiritual experiences. I promise you it will help you notice them more and more moving forward. For those of you who say, I never get signs, start with the small ones and they will build. Okay, by the way, I think this is a silly thing to share with you, but there's the oatmeal. Looking through the gate, looking right through the gate. I will never forget, that's the exact picture of it. This packet right here, and when I showed it to Kim, she said, oh my God, maple and brown sugar was my mom's favorite. And I didn't notice to this moment, everybody, that not all of them were maple and brown sugar. So way to go, Mom. All righty, let's see. Bev, I'll take another couple of questions. The first hour's over. We're going to get on to some more teaching, and I think that wraps up a lot of the evidence for now. That was beautiful.
Okay, let's see. Mavis states, I have no fear of dying, but I fear suffering here on earth. How do I alleviate that fear?
Wow. I want to ask the guides because I have my own thoughts on that. They tell me my Navy training has put me in good stead, and I know what they mean, that in the Navy we used to practice what we call what if drills, exercises in visualizing what would I do if this happened to me? How would I handle if that happened to me? And you can actually practice being in a state of peace, practice seeing and experiencing with the soul's awareness should you be in a situation where perhaps you're suffering from an illness that's ongoing. They want us to practice here and now, knowing we are souls and that at any time we can shift to the soul's perspective. They also want us to understand that, unfortunately, pain is part of the human condition. It goes with the vessel. It can't be predicted. To learn to not be afraid, to be in the moment, is one of the greatest training we can do. So notice that you're wasting energy now being afraid of something that may or may not happen. In the moment that you may find yourself suffering, you will always have your angels to call on and meditative practices to take the focus off of the pain and shift to the soul's awareness will greatly alleviate any suffering. But for now, you're suffering already if you're stuck in the future. Thank you. All righty. How about another one?
Nana asks, are there other planets in the universe to which our souls might reincarnate after leaving Earth?
I got a big twitch and I heard many, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let's see. We've done exercise in these sessions where I asked you all to shift your focus to your limitless expanded state as a soul and send out a message to someone you know to call you, contact you, email you in some way, text you, but that they would pick up on your energy just to show you how connected we all are. Some of you may have seen the post I made on Facebook earlier this week that it absolutely works in reverse. The more sensitive you become, the more you notice your thoughts. So Ty and I were sitting at dinner in between bites. We're just having a normal conversation about whatever it was, when suddenly I became aware of my friend Candace Blair. She's a beautiful energy and sound healer and yoga instructor, and she helped me at my retreat this past summer at Unity Village. There's Candace. I can't tell you if I heard her thoughts, if I saw her face. I just had this instantaneous knowing of Candace. It was so out of the blue in that moment. I knew Candace had just thought of me. This is what I want to train you all to get used to. If you're in the middle of anything else and a loved one pops into your mind in spirit, they're thinking of you. It's that juxtaposition of I wasn't thinking of them. There's no reason for me to. And this happens if someone you know who's still in physical form, same thing. I was so sure of it. And the guide said, because we wanted you to make this point right now, that I said, give me a second, honey. And right in the middle of dinner, the phone was off to my right. I picked it up. I texted Candace and it said, hey, Candace, I just picked up on you thinking of me right now. Notice how I didn't say, were you just thinking of me? I was sure. Seconds later, and Candace always has her phone off. She never answers. Seconds later, she goes, oh my God, just this moment I made a note. I need to reach out to Suzanne. It's been too long. Oh my goodness. Who needs a phone? So see, she didn't just have the thought. It was amplified by her making a note. And because we've interacted in the past, my energy field resonated with, went into coherence with her field. That's how it works. So here's your homework. Pay attention when someone pops into your mind, whether they're in the spirit world or here, when you were in the middle of doing something totally unrelated to them. Reach out to them no matter where they are. Send your love back to them. If they're here in physical form, give them a call. Send them an email. If they're not in physical form, send them so much love and a hug and thank them for giving you a call. All right. Here's the deep teaching that I promised you for this evening. It just was a huge aha for me into the nature of reality and oneness. And we talked earlier about Wolf from my book Wolf's Message, this young man who, by the way, was killed by a lightning strike the same way my stepdaughter Susan was. Her birthday was yesterday, by the way. Happy birthday, Susan. Wolf passed by lightning strike, came back to share with us many truths about who we are as humans and souls at the same time. In his reading for his parents, he showed me himself pointing at his head and saying, "It was very busy in here. I walked in two worlds at once." And his parents said he used to make that motion. They have a photo of him pointing right at his temple, and he used to say, "It's very busy in here." So ever since I met Wolf, which is, wow, maybe 2010, 2012, 2012, I think. Since I met him in the spirit world, I've been saying we walk in two worlds at once. And my guides showed me this past month, yes, you can say that, but it's like saying the sun rises and the sun sets. That really, we know the sun doesn't rise and set. It only appears that way from our perspective. And this is the key point this evening. There are not two worlds. And those two worlds from our human perspective is physical world and non-physical world. We call it the spirit world because they don't have a physical body, but they often tell us their bodies seem as solid to them as ours seem to us here. So when we stop saying the physical world and the non-physical world and realize that we all arise from one field of consciousness, one 0-point field, one sea of consciousness, there is only one world. But there are many realities that arise from that same world. But to differentiate it from our point of view between the physical world and the non-physical world often makes it seem that our loved ones are farther away from us or in some place where we can't reach them, when actually it's one world. Somebody put in the chat box the seen and the unseen. Well, that's also a nod to the physical world, because we can see things that they put in our eyes from their world. We can see things with the soul senses as well. So again, it's just the biggest lesson in how our language limits us. So my whole point in bringing this up, and as we move forward with this little teaching here, is to ask you to try to envision one field of consciousness. And here's our reality, which is more limited than the reality of those in the reality that comes after we no longer have a body, no longer are aware of a body. What do I mean by more limited? Each successive reality that our souls go through beyond this one has less rules. And a rule would be, for example, in this physical world, we have gravity, so we can't levitate, we can't fly on our own. We have time that unfolds linearly, past, present, and future. We deal with cause and effect that takes a while to be seen, what the effect of some causes is. So this earthly realm is highly limited, but that makes it an incredible place to learn and grow, especially when we don't instantly see the results of our actions. It also keeps us from realizing how interconnected we all are. So the more limited, the more challenging. Let's call it the astral realm, where we go when we transition out of our bodies, is much less limited, as those who come back to tell us about it show us. They don't worry about gravity. Their sense of time is completely different from ours. They don't have a sense of time. They can fly. They think about someplace, they're instantly there. They can bilocate, trilocate, and beyond, as Brenda has shown us, as several souls across the veil have shown me by talking to me and someone else at the exact same time with evidence. The angelic realm, which is not a place because there really is only one world, it's a different limitation of consciousness with different rules. The angelic realm is even less limited. They can influence greater spheres, different realms, greater numbers of people in those different realms, and so on, higher and higher. So thinking of there only being two worlds, the physical world and the non-physical world, that really limits us because we think it's us and everybody else, those in the spirit world, the astral realm, the angelic realm, the archangel realm, when it's really just less limitations, greater perspective, and greater ability to interact. So perhaps a more accurate way of describing the difference is modes of perception. Within this physical realm, see, I just go right back into the way that we talk, but we have to use these constructs to explain how things work. We call it the physical realm because we perceive through the instruments of this body, which is actually not physical when you break it down. Atoms are not, they're the basic building block of creation, and yet atoms are not solid. Isn't that mind-boggling? So we call it the physical world because we see through eyes that we think are physical, and we hear through ears, etc. We touch and we think that's physical. So what I recommend is, if you're going to shift your focus, as I've mentioned doing several times this evening, like with psychometry, if you're going to hold an object, shift from human mode to the expanded soul's mode. Think of it as shifting out of 5 sensory perception to multisensory perception. I'm trying to find different words to use every time that I do this, but full sensory perception. So if you're going back to the psychometry as an example, if you're holding a pen that used to belong to someone, we're not going to be tuning into just how it feels in the hand or what it looks like. We make that shift to, I am a multisensory being. What am I sensing? And you might see images that pertain exactly to the person that owned it. You might hear thoughts that belong to them. You might know things about them. Just like that, by shifting from 5 senses to full senses, you have shifted out of only human mode. So just notice how when we say there are 2 different worlds, they're not. The greater reality is right here. All of the realities interpenetrate each other, just more or less limited modes of perception and being. Let's see, I had some notes. I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. Brenda added on some teaching to this, and I had her specific words she had for me. She says, you don't need eyes to see because it is all right here in consciousness. This is what I've been telling you, she said. And I said, where here? Where are you? And she said, in awareness. And here's a great question for all of us from our dear Brenda. Are you using your eyes when you dream? That kind of gives you one of these duh moments. You're not using your physical eyes in dreams, yet things are so clear. I said to her, aha, good one. She says, are you hearing each other in your dream with ears? It only appears that way. Appearances lie, just like the sun rising and the sun setting. It is all just here in awareness. In awareness, that's the key. So she says, don't think of it as stepping into another reality or like stepping into a theater, because there's nowhere to step out of. It's all just here, the awareness theater. So I love that. I promised you a new analogy to understand how the different realms relate, and it's Lessons from a Carpet is what I call this. And it goes back to that class that I just taught in Pittsburgh. My mind is always being snagged, thanks to my team, by new ways to explain to you how we are all interconnected. And on a break in the class teaching these concepts, I'm walking down the hall and I looked down and I was snagged by the carpeting in the hotel. And I looked at it and the guide said, "This is how it works, right here." So I pull out my phone and I take a picture of the carpet then and there and turned it into this slide that I'm going to share with you. And I hope it makes it very clear what they're trying to show us. Here is the carpet in the hotel. And what the guides showed us as a way to understand, I'm going to use my cursor and I think you can see it. Notice how I'm drawing with my cursor this hexagon here with a dark line. And the hexagons in the dark line would represent individual fields of awareness, individual beings of light, you and me, in the human realm, the human, earthly, in a body realm. I'm not allowed to call it the physical world. Okay? Now look a little deeper and you can see hexagons made of blue, kind of spongy blue hexagons here. You see all those? The guide said, think of that as individual fields of being in the realm that follows this earthly realm. So we would call that the spirit world, the astral realm. Notice how they're all overlapping. Then they said, look at these larger shapes here. Why don't we call that the angelic realm? And these little arms kind of look like they're reaching out and helping more, having more of an effect. And they said that, you notice it's all one carpet. It's all just here. Yet these, in this case, here's another one of those big angel fields over here. In this case, we have 3 realms being represented, but you could see you could overlay a bunch of other realms. Maybe this gold part under here that covers all of it could be the archangelic realm. So how we're all interconnected is our thoughts resonate with others. Our consciousness flows out and interconnects us. So say here in this realm, this is me, and over here is Candace Blair, this field right here. She has a thought of Suzanne Giesemann, and her field starts vibrating. Oh my gosh, vibrating. It vibrated so much I canceled out the screen. Her field vibrates with the thought of me, and I over here go into coherence with that vibration. Think of a tuning fork. If you hold a tuning fork by a piano and strike the fork, the string on the piano that is in the same, that resonates with that fork, will vibrate. It's the same thing here. If you think of somebody, that is a specific tone, like a note on a piano, and if it's your note, you will vibrate. You pick up on it. You see? So Candace thinks of me, I pick up on that thought, boom, we're connected. We didn't have to move. There's only here. Now here I am, and I suddenly think of my stepdaughter Susan, who perhaps is represented by this blue spongy thing in the astral realm over here. And because she recognizes her note, her tone, as I strike that tuning fork of my thoughts of her, she resonates, picks up on it. We have activated that connection between us, and we're talking because she is right here. There's only here. That's there. We call this the physical world only because we perceive through senses of a body that we call physical. We call this the non-physical world only because they're sensing with full senses. But we can sense with our full senses at any time and tune into all that arises from this one field, including, of course, the angels and the archangels at the higher level and the entire field itself. I hope I explained that in a way that makes sense to all of you. It's so exciting to me. It may seem really obvious, but it's this is all designed just to share with all of you that I don't want you to limit your connection with others because you think they're no longer in physical form. The physical senses limit our awareness of them, but you are not limited to your physical senses as shown by your dream state. Dream state is just a different state of consciousness with less rules than we have when we're in the normal waking human state. Choose the state of consciousness that goes with the realm your loved one is in. The less limited state of the astral realm, shift into full sensory perception and enjoy interacting with them. Your thoughts set up a resonance with them. They pick up on the thoughts and say, oh, there's my mom thinking of me. I'll just connect with her right now and we'll have a conversation. Does that make sense? Yay. Whew. Okay. Bev, let's do some Q&A.
Let's see. Many questions about our pets tonight.
Okay.
I'll take one from Charlo. Can dogs reincarnate into our life on more than one occasion? In other words, could we have the same dog in our life more than once?
I'm hearing from my guides, I've never asked this question. Yes, and you think it is a curse that your dogs live a short life, but the blessing is that they can come back again and again.
Oh,
nice.
Great.
Not just dogs, any pet that has that short span.
Great.
How about another?
Susan states the holy days that we celebrate on earth are so important to us. What is the meaning beyond the veil for these times?
The guides are saying that stories create rituals and belief systems that bring you together as one field, uniting you in joy, in a sense of connection and love. The repetition of these traditions year after year solidifies this sense of knowing that you are part of something much greater. Celebrate your traditions and the rituals and the stories as long as they bring you peace and connection.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bev, I'm going to move on because I see I have a lot, good bit of stuff to cover, and we'll fill in with lots of Q&A at the end if we need to. So there will be more of those. All right. This past month, Lynette and Bev and I enjoyed the fun of getting together in Salt Lake City for a conference, the Emergence 2021 conference. It was so much fun to be together with them, but we had several really awesome God winks with you. Again, I share these because that helps you to notice the web and how you're part of one big connected field. Think of the carpet. I hope you never see carpet the same again. But the first God wink. I was kept awake all 3 nights, not all night long, but for hours each night as my guides were giving me a download with information for helping me in my work. The result of that download is the new e-guide that's on the homepage of my website. It's called Where Do I Begin? They were showing me that most people who need healing, there's no one linear step, and they showed me how we're all on our own spiral path of evolution, and that we pick and choose what will help us along the cyclical nature of life. And if we don't get what we need in the first go round, right where we are right now, a little bit down the road in this lifetime, we'll be in a different place and we'll pick different things. And so that e-guide came together in these 3 nights as they're showing me give an offering of the different resources we have given you and share it with people in this spiral-like fashion, like a menu. And they showed me that all of my resources could be like a buffet where people pick and choose from the buffet. So they gave me an idea of using a menu like a buffet. And that night, in the middle of the night, the guide said, dive in, just dive right in. And when I got up in the morning, I was joking at breakfast with Bev and Lynette. I said, all this talk about buffets and diving in is making me hungry for chocolate cake. Okay? So the hotel was different than the conference site, and we got rides from different volunteers at the conference each morning and each afternoon. That morning, after we had just had that conversation, one of the staff members of the conference picks us up. I'm in the front seat, Lynette and Bev are in the back, and he looks at me, he's driving, he says, Suzanne, I dreamed of you last night. Now, I hadn't met this man till the day before, and he's dreaming of me. I got to make sure I get this right. He says, you and I were at a buffet. Now, right away, I kind of perk up. He says, they brought around a tray of desserts that were just samples, and you shocked me by reaching out and taking the chocolate cake right off the tray. You looked at me and said, dive in. Oh my gosh. Now, some of you reach out for me time to time and say, Suzanne, I dreamed of you last night. And I guess that's because some of you were watching a YouTube video or reading my book. I don't know. But that is the most phenomenal dream report I have ever had, with Lynette and Bev as my witness. The buffet, dive in, and the chocolate cake. And why that guy in particular picked up on that, I have no idea. And the guides, as I just realized I can ask them right now, they just said, because you're all entangled. He was thinking about you because you're about to give the keynote speech, and it provides these magical moments to show us this resonance that we set up when we align with others in our energy is just phenomenal. One field of consciousness, everybody. So, oh, I love this. I was getting so many ideas. I had taken a notebook with me. I don't know about any of you, but when I get in an airplane, downloads come. It's something about getting my feet off the earth, literally. And so I almost filled the notebook on the plane. And in these downloads in the middle of the night, I was absolutely filling my notebook, and I knew I was going to get more downloads on the way back. So I sent myself an email as a reminder, buy a new notebook at the airport, or I'm not going to have anything to write on. I guess I could type it in my phone, but I like notebooks on an airplane. So I arrived really early at the airport. Most of the shops were closed, but I'm on a mission to get a notebook. Now we have to back up a little bit. The day before, we three girls snuck out of the conference and went back to the hotel. We were getting so much information, we decided to start working on this menu of offerings. But we took a break to watch one of my events online, the Shift Network's interview of me. And in that interview, I guided everybody through a meditation. So here we all three are on the couch in the hotel room watching me do a guided meditation. And I did it myself as we're watching. And I asked everybody to ask a spirit guide to step in, or a guide. And I sensed the guide. I think we all had a nice experience. And then I guided everybody to ask for a specific sign. And the guide would put in your mind what to ask for. Well, I heard, ask for something golden. Gilded, in fact. Now, I knew that didn't come from me because I don't use a word like gilded. So that whole day I'm looking around for golden things, and I knew like a piece of gold jewelry wasn't going to cut it. It had to be golden or gilded. So I didn't get it all day, but here I am the next day at the airport now looking for a notebook. I've kind of forgotten about the golden thing. And I saw one of those Hudson booksellers, right? And I start to head to it, but I saw a really cute shop next to it that had just opened up. And I went in, and they had a few girly notebooks with fancy covers on it. And I picked one up, I turned it over, and I said to myself, I am not spending $10 for a little paper notebook. Forget it. So I put that back, went over to the bookseller, the little standard newsstand, and I said, do you have any notebooks? She said, yeah, right over there. I go over to the stand and I went, ah! So much so that the bookseller turns to me and I said, sorry, nothing, everything's good. I'll show you all why I gasped. Here's the notebook. It says, stay golden, and it's really glittery. Why? Because the whole thing is gilded. I've never seen a cover like this, gilded. It's one of those things where you just say, thank you, team. That was really awesome. And I turned it over, and it was $16, and I didn't care. I had to have it. So this is one expensive notebook that I ended up needing on the aircraft and started filling with more downloads from Spirit. And I share all of this with all of you in the spirit of trusting your guides, asking for signs, asking for downloads, asking for information that comes from beyond your physical senses. It is magical to live that way, and you can. You just have to remember to ask, okay? So let's see. One other thing about that weekend was so amazingly cool. Lynette and I arrived at the airport the first day, right about the same time. She waited for me so that we could share a ride to the hotel, which was a little bit of a distance away. So we got one of those Lyft rides, L-Y-F-T. It's a ride service for those of you who aren't in the U.S., kind of like Uber, where regular people use their own cars and they pick you up and take you places. So we get in the back of the car, and our driver is this, maybe 30-ish, 40th, maybe not even 40, Hispanic guy. Just the ordinary guy driving his car, and we get to talking, and he was real chatty and he's real friendly. And he said, why are you here? And we said, we're here to talk. I'm speaking at a conference. Oh, what's the conference about? And we said, it's called The Emergence. It's about, raising your vibe. We're trying to put it in words that he would understand. And he goes, oh, everything is energy. Everything is consciousness. And Lynette and I looked at each other and we burst out laughing. And we said, so you know this stuff? And he goes, oh yeah, I manifest things in my life. And he proceeded to tell us how he was changed by seeing one of those movies like the Law of Attraction type things, and how he manifested a career as a dental assistant. And he kept saying phrases that had us cracking up in the back seat. And I said, we're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you, because you could be giving my talk for tomorrow night. His phrases were straight out of my presentation, this Lyft driver. And we said, are you still doing dental tech work? And he said, no, I like this. And this is why I share this with all of you right now, because he said, he likes hoping to be a positive influence on the people he picks up. That he never knows how his interaction with the people in his car could possibly change their life. And he gives them a positive attitude, and he shows them anything is possible. And I thought, look at that. Here's a guy that really does get it. That no matter what job you're in, no matter what position you're in your life, what you give out is what you get back. Every one of us has the opportunity to make a difference in our world, no matter what you're doing. And it all has to do with harnessing the power of consciousness, the soul. He was amazing, and it was no coincidence that we ended up in his car. And just so cool. We invited him to the conference, but he had to work. So I love that. How about a couple questions, Bev?
Okay. This is a mediumship question.
Okay.
Kathleen asks, how do you come up with or develop the agreed upon signs and signals with spirit in your readings?
is she talking about symbols? Yes.
Mhm.
This is perfect. Symbols, like I said, are a great, efficient way of getting information across. There are certain things that humans have in common. A lot of humans love to golf. So clearly, if you see this, it's a golfer. There are things that come up in a lot of reading. Like I mentioned, a lot of people get tattoos after somebody passes. So what you do is, knowing that you have a mediumship guide who's going to be listening in and helping those spirits to prepare to work with your unique methods and styles every time. When you, the medium, are doing a reading and something comes up from the spirit you're working with that's common, that you know will come up in a future reading, in that moment, when it's validated by the client, you silently say to your guide, that's a good one. That'll make a good symbol in the future. Next time that comes up again, let's use that as our symbol for this. Now, I just said that slowly, but you can do it just like that. Make that a symbol, just like that. So the very first time I saw a hand like charades drawing a tattoo on an arm, that's how I perceive things in my readings. I went, good one. That's going to be tattoo from now on. Doesn't mean the tattoo's always on the arm. We look further, but that gets me to tattoo. What other symbols do I have? Hands held out. When I see two hands go out like this, I know that person was arrested for something. That's a symbol. Only in my system, this is important. You'll develop your own symbols because things will come through to you in different ways. So it's fun. It's really cool. The very first time I saw a caduceus, I'd never seen it before, but I just knew this man in spirit was telling me I was a doctor. I reported that, and his daughter says, yeah, he was a doctor. Oh, I went, good one. Brenda, let's use that for doctors from now on. The very next day, I reported this in a monthly mentoring not too long ago. The very next day, a spirit showed me a caduceus, and I thought, no way. And I said, your husband was a doctor. Yes, he was. And I was like, Brenda, hey, Brenda was not giving me that caduceus. I knew she had talked to that man and said, look, we have a new symbol. I can see you were a doctor. You got to show her a caduceus. She'll know what that means. You see? Cool. How about
Thank
another one,
you.
Beth?
From Anonymous. Have the spirit guides that come up in your readings always have been human souls, or have you had experience with spirit guides that had not been human, that are other spiritual entities?
This is a bit of splitting hairs here, but our main spirit guides almost always have been human. They really, really understand in a personal way the human way, the human story. But there are guides who are definitely of the higher realms, like angels, not all of which were in human form. Many angels have not been humans. So they can be both.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do one more question, please.
This is also anonymous.
Hi, Anonymous.
Do animals have a significance across the veil? Do they have a purpose on that side?
Oh my goodness, yes. Especially, I just immediately see them greeting little children across the veil. Because children immediately know them as loving creatures. If they didn't have a loved one that immediately greets them, there may be great great grandparents that they never met. There may be a grandparent that they also haven't met, but they'll get to know them across the veil. They're often met by pets, and they're in fields with little animals. So that's one purpose. Oh my. Whew, the guides just said, and for you adults, can you imagine a world without your beloved animals? So that just tells me they're around us in the spirit world because they serve the same purpose there as they do here. Show us love. My thanks to Karen Crawford, who sent me a t-shirt that has my favorite phrase on it, be like Nellie. my little dog Nellie. If we could all be like our beloved companions who only know unconditional love, well, I guess we wouldn't need to be here. It would be heaven, huh? Yeah. Okay, let me take a few more. Just a quick couple of God winks because I love these. I hope you all had a chance to watch my Messages of Hope radio show interview. I say watch it because it's now on YouTube with Yardbirds drummer Jim McCarty. He came back to talk about, he came on the show to talk about his wife Lizzie and his interaction with her since she has passed. He talked about his new book called She Walks in Beauty. In that radio show, I wasn't expecting to, but unexpectedly, out of the blue, I had the nudge to ask him, where did you get the title for the book? And he said, oh, I saw it, I read it in a poem by Lord Byron, and I just thought that reminds me of my Lizzie. She walks in beauty. So I thought, oh, that's cool. I'd never heard that poem. The very next day, I have a stack of books. My guides nudged me which one to read. I'm reading the book. I turn the page, and there it says, and there is a poem by Lord Byron called She Walks in Beauty. Again, I'm told which book to read next. I tune in and say, what is the best thing for me to read now? Those of you, oh, wow. Okay, I just got an answer to a question that I didn't know. Why some of you are not getting your signs. You're not following the nudges that will lead you to the signs. Wow. So the signs don't always just drop down at our feet. Wow. Coming to see signs is a gift that results from being aware, working in connection with your guides continuously, and being guided moment by moment. So what they just showed me, we're all learning this together, is the reason I see signs so much is I am constantly asking Spirit, what do I do next? What's the best next step? I have this big to-do list. What do I do next? What book should I read this evening? I don't just think about it. I ask for guidance. So moment by moment, I'm guided. Are you? Are you living this way? Are you getting your signs? If you're not, then you're in a very human box, and that's very normal. There's nothing wrong with you, but the path you're on now is learning to live lucidly. Learning to live the awakened way is what I call it. So there's the key. Moment by moment, don't go looking for your signs. Learn to be tuning into what to be doing moment by moment, and the signs will drop into your awareness. It's so obvious. But see, I've gotten in the habit of living that way over the past few years, but I didn't always, and I didn't see signs. So stop looking for the signs and start walking hand in hand with your guides every moment. Do you wake up in the morning and immediately brush your teeth? Even there, you can stop. The moment you get out of bed, just tune in and kind of say, what do I do right now? And maybe today, instead, you'll wash your face first and you'll see something in the steam on the mirror. I'm just going by the seat of my pants here as I share this with you now, but you can see how it is to live moment by moment being guided, and then with that connection, the God winks will show up. I love that. Let's see. One more little God wink about noticing things. On that flight to Salt Lake City, I was enjoying music from my iPhone, and I was enjoying music by a group called Cantoma. I play their music at some of my events sometimes. It's very uplifting, a nice high vibe. And there was only one song from a specific album, and I thought, oh, that's so good. I'm going to get the whole album. So as soon as we landed and we were able to turn our phones back on, I went to iTunes. I matched the little icon of the album from that one song, and I bought the whole album. As I downloaded it, I'm standing in the aisle of the plane. We're just getting off, and I started laughing. Are you ready for this? The title of the album was Just Landed. So this is the perfect example of what we were just talking about. What do I do right now in this few moments while we're waiting for everybody in front of me to get off? I'm nudged by that album now. Your thoughts are not all your own. I can hear my guide right now saying, this is going to be good. We just told her, buy that album now instead of reading your email, because the timing is perfect. You're not a separate being. If you start working in concert with higher beings, life will become much more magical. Wow. Bev, I'd love for you to make a special video clip of that whole section we just did for YouTube, because that's a huge aha for me. Yeah. I mean, it was right before this evening's session started that I read the comment on Facebook, why do I never get signs? And I sat here and said to the guides, I don't like that I don't have an answer for this. Help me with this. And they gave it to us right in front of everybody. So see how it works? I love it. How about a couple questions, Bev?
Okay. Carol asks, can loved ones and pets on the other side, can they actually move or physically affect objects in our physical world? For instance, I feel my cat jump on the sofa next to me.
Oh, I know that as you ask that question, all kinds of people who are paying attention tonight can tell you a story of when they felt their cats and dogs as well. Yeah, we felt Rudy walk across our feet in bed. It was phenomenal. Yes, they can affect energy very well. So I told the oatmeal story. That was a human being moving the oatmeal package, but you can feel them. I've heard stories of dogs rolling balls across the floor. I've had spirits knock pictures off the wall. In my very first reading, where we went to a medium to see if Susan was still around, she knocked a plant off a table right in front of us. We didn't know they could do that. We didn't understand what was happening, but now you do. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna keep going, Bev, because I see I have just a few more things I want to cover without running out of time. My head feels like it's going to explode, by the way. That's called higher energy. If any of you are feeling pressure, that's just because the spirit is so with us this evening. So what do? It's going to be late here when we finish. I don't know where all of you are, but thanks for joining us. Bring your energy back in. Chakras don't just get blocked when we do chakra clearing, they get overextended. So do a chakra balancing exercise anytime you're just feeling a little out of balance. I'm going to have to bring mine all back in to a state where I can sleep. It'll work for all of you. So I said in the email we sent out, we would talk about Sanaya's best advice for seekers. At that conference in Salt Lake City, I channeled Sanaya, and somebody in the audience asked a question. What advice do you have for seekers? The answer from Sanaya, such a good question, and the answer is quite simple. Change your wording and no longer refer to yourselves as seekers. Simply be that which you know in the soul you are. Seeker implies something is missing. And at the level of the soul, nothing is missing. Their message for all of us is, you are already whole. You are already complete. Seek no more, basically. Be that which you are. Recognize at the soul level you came here for experiences. Your experiences will never be complete. So dive into the buffet of life. Sample everything, and some of it you're going to want to spit out. Some of it will not taste good at all. But don't seek love. It's already here. We can seek wisdom in books and workshops and sessions like this, but only for the experience. Your soul already knows these things. That's why some people want to cry when they attend some of these channeling sessions or hear some of these things. They get weepy. It's your soul saying, yes, yes, now it's coming to the surface, but you already knew this. As long as you think you're missing something and consider yourself a seeker, you'll never get to a place where you're satisfied. But I have news for everybody. Enlightenment never ends, and that's good news, because it is so joyous to peel off the layers of human conditioning and let the soul's light shine more and more. There are definitely moments of suffering in there, but they're shorter and shorter when you realize that that's all part of the experience of being human. So if you're calling yourself a seeker, I would find new words and say, I'm seeking experience perhaps, but everything you need is already here. All right. Bev, maybe we can find that recording. I don't think we filmed it, and just put the recording on YouTube of what they said to that. That would be awesome. So let's see. I'll take a couple more questions, then I want to share one other really cool thing with you. Go ahead, Bev. Couple more.
Susan's asked, would it be accurate to liken Gaia as a spirit with the physical earth as her body? Is that like us with our physical body?
Very, very much so. Many other spiritual teachers have said this, but I checked with my guides earlier on that one because I was curious of the same thing, and they showed me that trees and bushes are like the hair on your arm, just growing like they're what grows out of her body, Gaia, Mother Earth. But also, we need to understand that she's much more powerful and loving and accepting than we think. And I read somebody the other day, so this is not from Sanaya, that said that, you know, Mother Earth is not really suffering. If she was really tired of us pesky humans harming her so much, in the flick of a wrist, she could fling us off of here. That was said a little bit humorously, but there's a lot of truth there. But we really, really need to respect her more. Yeah.
Thank
and another
you.
one.
Babette asks, can we continue a relationship once we're in spirit with an unborn child of ours?
Oh, absolutely. But don't wait till you pass. Do it right now. I see miscarriage symbol quite often, or abortion, same thing, in my readings. And I see this beautiful sparkling light, and they come to tell the parents, I'm always part of your life, and I'm around you. We're connected soul to soul always, and we will see each other face to face across the veil. But just talk to them now, and use the name for them and hold them right there in awareness in your heart where they already are. Okay, I want to read you something, speaking of animals, from a book that I read about in another book I was reading. This is one of the ways Spirit speaks to me. I'll be reading something and the author will reference a book, and my guides will say, get that one. It's very clear. That's the distinction I'd like you to start making. It's not, I thought of getting that book. It's a knowing that the guides want me to get it. And that's why I find so many of my signs in books. They show up there. I just asked for a sign this morning, and I know I'm going to see it soon. I can feel the energy building, and I know it'll come in a magical way because I follow the nudges all the time. So this book, Kinship with All Life, sounded really good, and the guide said, get it. And it's about stories of animals' amazing sense of knowing things that we don't always know. I started reading the book, and I said, boy, this is true. I have to put my glasses on to read it to you now. But right in the foreword, The author writes, as we live through these kaleidoscopic days when confusion, distrust, conflict, and misery are so common everywhere, it's revealing to note that more and more people are finding reassurance and peace of mind in companionship beyond the boundaries of humanity. So he's talking about the animal world. But boy, can't we identify with that? Isn't this life, it just seems more and more these days, kaleidoscopic days with confusion, distrust, conflict, and misery, so common everywhere. Well, I'm reading that, and the guide said, all is not as it seems. Check the copyright. Literally, I heard that. Are you ready? This book was written in 1954. Over 60 years ago. So many people think the world is going to hell. Things are so much worse than they used to. We look back at the happy days, the 50s, right? What's changed? Happily, consciousness is rising. But this is the lesson. The ups and downs of life, the conflict of life, are why we came here. Because it's through the contrast of conflict that we grow, that we really recognize love and the more positive feelings that the soul already knows by coming here and wallowing it in a bit. But when it gets to be too much, that's when we turn to start asking the deeper questions. That's when we become seekers. And then we realize that beyond the conflict, beyond the turmoil, there is something else. And tonight I've done my best to give you evidence of that greater world. As Sanaya says, what do you do when the world gets you down? You realize this is not the only world. And that's my mission to share with all of you. There is one world, not two. And you are already part of the greater aspect as a soul. But for a while, you're in one little aspect of that world with a lot of limitations and a lot of conflict and a lot of turmoil. And what are you going to do with that? How are you going to let your soul shine? Because that's not going away, that conflict. But love is always here, always. Because it's the carpet under our feet. Love. It's what connects us. It's the threads. Every one of us, a thread in that carpet. I love you all so much. I'm so glad you joined us this evening. I hope that something I've said here tonight really, really struck you to the point where you know who you are and why you're here. And may that carry you through the holidays with joy. I just feel like I'm bursting right now. And that's another thing my guides told me. Awakening. It's going from an emptiness that can't be filled, and I know we all know that feeling, to a fullness that can't be contained. So may you feel that fullness and spew it all over everyone until we meet again. Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Lynette. Yeah, I love you all, and we'll see you next time. Good night.